When it comes to politics in the US, few topics are as divisive as the topic of gun control and whether or not people should be allowed to own guns. Now, it is written in the Second Amendment, but is this just something that has been held onto as a thing to allow people to own hunting rifles? Or should people also be allowed to own tanks and rocket launchers and any kind of crazy weapons, nuclear bombs even? I mean, the reality is that guns are a big part of American culture. But there's another big part of American culture that is actually more deadly than guns are, that almost nobody is talking about, especially on the national level. And the people who are talking about it aren't talking about it in the right way and the real issues about this topic, and that is car culture. Now, let me give you some numbers here. In the United States, there are 290 million cars on the road. How many guns are there? 390 million. 100 million more guns not on the road, of course, but in people's houses than we have cars on the road. And that's a lot of guns. And so we'd expect that with that many guns, there's going to be a lot of death. And reality is, yes, again, you can be as pro-gun as you want, but the reality is there are lots of people dying from guns every single year in the United States, and that number is 43,000 people dying on average from guns. Now, pro-gun people are going to point out that over half of these people, again, it's in the mid-50s, are dying because of suicide. And if they didn't have a gun, they'd go and find another way to kill themselves. Okay, that is a fair point, and I'll circle around back to that. But how many people are dying from cars? Is it less than that? I mean, there's less cars. So if we're going to say there's less cars, then there should also be less deaths, right? Well, the reality is actually quite different. There's 46,000 people dying every single year from car accidents. Now, 46,000 is really close, admittedly, to 43,000. But if we consider that there's 100 million more guns than there are cars, the differences are really much bigger than just the actual numbers there. So really, cars are more dangerous. But there's some other components to look at this too. If we look at guns and we consider the fact that guns that are, again, like I mentioned, most of them are used for suicide. Car accidents are typically, there's exceptions, but they're typically not suicidal. They're typically all accidents. The actual number of accidental gun discharge that result in death is less than 1,000. Still, every single one of them is absolutely a tragedy. No questions about that. But what I'm trying to look at here is how are these deaths happening? Accidental deaths, 46,000 accidental deaths from cars versus 1,000 accidental deaths from guns. When there's more guns, that's crazy. People are dying like crazy from cars. And almost nobody's talking about it. The only people who are talking about it are the progressives and the liberals. And they're talking about it in the context of pollution and how much pollution the cars are making. And the solution isn't to say, in some circles it is, let's eliminate cars. But most people are pushing more of this idea of we need to get rid of gas cars and replace them with electric cars and self-driving cars and address the issue that way. And it doesn't actually solve the problem. I mean, and again, all those things I'm frankly not inherently opposed to. I don't want to ban cars. I don't want to ban gas cars. But I do like the idea of not having as much toxic fumes from cars on the roads. This is another big aspect, is in states where you can conceal carry, like South Dakota where I lived, was a big place where you could do this. You can go to Walmart. And the reality is there are lots of people in the Walmart as you're going through the store that are currently have a gun on them. The number would be shocking to a lot of people about how many people are actually walking through Walmart with a gun. Now, there's never shootouts. There's never any violence. Nothing ever happens with that. And when they're walking through Walmart, they're not polluting. They're not creating this toxic air that people have to breathe in. But when you get to Walmart and you get out of your car and you walk into the store, you're walking by all these cars that have put up, you can see the oil slicks on the road. You can see this smell, all the fumes from the cars, and the parking lot is filled with all this. And that you have to breathe it in as you get into the store. And again, that's not good. Is it the end of the world? I mean, I think it's blown out of proportion. But if I had a choice of not breathing in toxic fumes and breathing in toxic fumes, I would choose not breathing in toxic fumes. And I would hope that you would be with me on that regard. But again, it gets much worse than this. When people have guns, they can store them. They don't take up much space. You can put a gun inside a safe, or you can put it in your a drawer. Maybe not the best thing to do. Put it in a safe, lock it up, keep it. Be smart here, but it doesn't take up a lot of room, and you have it in your own house. But the amount of space, the amount of room that is required to go and manage people's car addiction in the United States is ridiculous. It is just insane. Like go to a Walmart and look at how much space of land, how much land is being used up just to park a multi-$1,000 piece of equipment that you are now required, for all intents and purposes, to use just to function in daily life. It's an incredibly lot. It's just a high amount of land. And the difference is, if you know anything about real estate, or not real estate, but retail stores, when you're in a retail store and you want to run a retail store, one of the numbers you say is, what is your revenue per square foot? So we have 100 square feet of retail space. How much money are we making per square foot in revenue? And this is a big metric that retail stores use. Well, do you know how much money a parking lot is making? Zero money. Actually, it's worse than $0. It's -$, because now you have to also pay for the plows to maintain that parking lot. You have to make sure that the maintenance is done. So when the parking lot breaks, that someone's out there to patch it up. You have to make sure that the parking lot is well lit. The parking lot is actually negative. It's an expense. But everyone says, we have to have these because no one will show up if we don't have a parking lot for people to park their cars. Again, the cars aren't making money. The cars aren't buying anything. The people are buying things, not the cars. But we are so addicted to it. We can't get enough of this car culture that is forcing people to spend thousands and thousands of dollars every single year just to be able to get around in most places of the United States. That is forcing people to buy more expensive property because now they need to have more space to store this expensive piece of equipment. That is forcing people to inhale these toxic fumes that are now at the street level if you're walking around, and are killing people at a higher rate per item per in use than guns. They're more deadly than guns. And it doesn't matter if it's criminal use of guns, if it's suicide, all gun use. And again, from what I understand from these numbers, these are not car-related deaths. So let's say someone goes into a garage and they park their car in and they fill it up with the carbon monoxide and try to off themselves in that way. I'm sorry for the bluntness. Apparently, YouTube doesn't like the S word there. Then I don't think that's included in this 46,000 number either. So it's a very serious problem, and it's we need to refocus the way we talk about this. And the challenge is the only people who are talking about this are the green, eco-conscious, the liberals and progressives who are trying to get rid of the cars. But the conservatives and the right wing, they are ignoring this issue entirely and saying that, no, it's my car, it's my right, I get to go and do it. I have the right to go and drive on these publicly funded roads that my tax dollars are paying for. I have the right to go and use more gasoline, and I have the right to go and insist that we take away the human scale of cities and we make it just for a car. That's not a good way. That's not a conservative value. We got to think differently about this issue, and I want to see more conservatives talking about the issue of making people have to use cars just to get around. So I'm going to be making more videos about this topic, and if you want to see them, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm RJ. Have a great day.